Hi, I'm Shelley Maurer,
And I'm Cher Emmerich. Welcome to Life Lessons from Pickleball,
where we engage with pickleball players from around the world about life on and off the court.
Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Life Lessons from Pickleball, everyone. Oh, we couldn't be more excited to have with us as our guest today, Bainbridge Island's very own Mr. Pickleball, Clay Roberts.
Clay, you are the CEO of Roberts & Associates, a firm dedicated to the healthy development of young people. You are also a prevention expert on the Today Show, a renowned keynote speaker, and a school consultant. Passionate about helping kids develop the internal and external assets they need for career and life success.
We are super eager to hear about your pickleball journey, Clay, and your beautiful title, Mr. Pickleball. But first,
I didn't make that one up, by the way. That's your title, not mine. But
Oh, we read
but,
it's in print.
well, thanks for that very, very nice introduction. It's one of those introductions that you wish your mom and dad were here to appreciate. And they're never here at the right time. But nice to be with you.
But we want to hear first about your work with kids, your company, and the incredible work you're doing with kids.
Well, I really appreciate you asking that question first, because my grandchildren think I'm a professional pickleball player, and this is what I've done all my life. But in fact, what I'm most proud of is our professional work, and we've had a great team. But most of the research looks at children who don't make it. Kids who use drugs, kids who are violent, kids who drop out early, and ask what went wrong here. And we decided that wasn't the way to do this work. Our focus is on prevention. So we have a database of 3.5 million children. And we looked at those children who came from adversity and made it in spite of that adversity. They were the most interesting children to look at. And when you look at those kids, there's a profile, and my clients are primarily school districts and governmental agencies, and they want to know, what do you know about those incredibly resilient children? So that's our work, and we not only share what we know, but based on that, how would you do things differently with children? And just to give you a couple quick examples.
Yes, please.
Children who have 3 or more adults in their life, in addition to their parents, do dramatically better.
Oh.
Kids who spend an hour a week in community service, giving back to the communities in which they live. You know, they're givers, not takers. Those kids do dramatically better. I mean, as you go down this list, and it's a pretty significant list. Actually, I was doing this work not too long ago, and a guy came up to me and he said, "People pay you to do this?" He said, "What are you, the CEO of Common Sense?" But it's common sense, not common practice. And so our work is all around building healthy communities for children. So that's the work I've done professionally. And interestingly enough, it kind of set the stage for my volunteer work with pickleball. I didn't think this was where I was going to spend this much time. And I'm not totally retired, but kind of semi-retired. I didn't think this is where I would be spending my time, right?
Sharon, I didn't know we would be spending all our time playing and focused on pickleball.
That's right.
Do your significant others roll their eyes when you say the word pickleball? Mine does.
Yes, and my grandchildren and my children, and yes.
Yeah. Well, I know exactly where you're at, and aren't we lucky?
We are very lucky.
Yeah.
Now, how do you get the information that you have on kids? You said you focus on these kids. Are you following them over the years? I mean, how do you get the information?
There's a survey that young people fill out both in middle school and high school, and we have kids around the country filling out that information, and that data is tabulated, and we come up with a profile of how many of these, we call these things developmental assets, and we can track how many of them they have in their life. That's one of the issues and one of the things we work on, but I can tell you it's one of several programs we've done. Another program that some of your viewers may know about is a program called Natural Helpers, which is a peer helping program where we go into high schools and middle schools and survey. See, kids know when their friends are in trouble long before we know.
Yeah.
And if you want to intervene in school shootings, in suicide, um, kids know when their friends are in trouble long before we do. They're the early warning system. And so we go
Mhm.
in and survey kids and we ask them if you had a personal problem, drugs, alcohol, abuse, list by name 2 students and 2 staff members you would trust to talk with. We tabulate that data, come up with a profile of the most trusted students and staff in the school. We take them away on a retreat with mental health professionals, and we teach them not to be junior counselors or therapists, but they're the canary in the coal mine. They know when things are going on, and if we can get that information early, we have a chance of intervening successfully. So that's just another model. So we've been trying to figure out how can I put it? I think some creative ways of improving mental and physical health for children. So that's what I do.
And it really takes a village.
It it absolutely does.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what we've done in the past is we've left kids out of that village.
Hmm.
Mhm.
We're trying to do it with them. I mean, for them and to them rather than with them. And I think unless we partner with them, we don't have a chance of success. Right?
So true.
Yeah. So that's what I do.
Oh my gosh, I can't thank you enough
Actually,
for what you're doing. I have a
Actually,
6-year-old grandson who I
it's
know is going to benefit from all the wisdom that you're imparting with on how to relate, how to be available and help kids have a better sense of self. That's
yes.
huge.
well,
And
I'm a
learn how
lucky
to be
guy to
part
get
of
to
the
do this.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
your programs have even been featured in PBS Frontline, Newsweek, The Wall Street Journal, and you're an expert on the Today Show.
Well, that's what they called me, but I'm not sure that I meet the all the criteria. But it's like this. It's an opportunity to get the word out on really important work, and I think if we begin to understand what we need to do, it's more likely it'll happen. So that's our work.
That's beautiful. Thank you for everything. Very touching, actually. Very touching. The prevention part, like you said, don't come in after the fact and try to figure out what went wrong. Let's prevent it from the get go.
Yeah.
Thank you. So,
Yes.
what was going on in your life when you were first introduced to pickleball?
I was nearing where most people retire, but we were spending a little more time down south during the winter time, and we went down to the Palm Springs area with some friends, and I was watching all these people play, and my friend, good story, he was not a pickleball player either, and we watched it, and he's got a dog. The next morning, he was at the dog park. He said, the guy said, "Do you play pickleball?" And John said, "No, but I think I could be the champion. I watched it the other day." And the guy turned around and said, "Well, I am the champion of this court." And
Oh,
it turns out there's a whole lot more to the game than one would expect, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's not just hitting the ball over the net.
no, and it's not being a banger,
No.
you know. And so that was my first. I spent a few weeks playing, came back to Bainbridge, and found that we, as at the home of the game, didn't have any courts. I mean, we were playing on, you know, a tennis court, sharing it, and with shared lines and all of what everybody else has been through. And I thought, this is really wrong. This is so wrong at the home of the game, right? So that's how I first came into contact. I knew a little bit about it, but then I started playing and I got hooked.
did you get hooked right away?
I did. I played a lot of games in my life, but this one was different. It was the most social game I had ever played,
Hmm.
and I was a former tennis player. If you show up as a single at a tennis court, you might be waiting 3 weeks to find somebody who invites you in.
So
But
true.
as a pickleball player, you show up and in 5 minutes you got a game and you got 3 new friends, right?
Ah,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
So when we didn't have any courts, a friend of mine, Bill Walker, and I decided we'd approach the Parks Department and lobby them to at least let us have a better setup on the tennis courts, and it went from there. And the tennis people made such a stink that the Parks Department said, well, the money that we'd set aside for, we were going to build new tennis courts, we're going to build new pickleball courts. So
I'll be darned.
we raised money, they raised money, and we built 6 new courts. And I thought this was about courts. It's not about building courts. It's about building community. So when we talk about, one of my first life lessons was, I thought my job was to help build courts, but it was really, when we started doing this, I realized we're about building community.
Yeah.
And that was something I knew a little bit about from my professional career.
Right.
But it was just, I mean, everybody has stories, right? But I still remember a woman that I taught to play, and about 6 months later, we were at a social event, and she came up to me, her name's Pam, and she said, Clay, I just want to thank you for teaching me to play. And she started to cry. I said, Pam, it's pickleball. And she said, no, you don't understand. She said, I lost my husband this year. And she said, I just played in a game with 3 other people who've all lost a spouse in the last year. She said, I stay home too often and cry. She said, this is my happy place. It's like, did I think this was what we were about? No. It's been really interesting to watch that. Another woman came up to me and said, I told a friend I'm playing pickleball, and she said, that's not a sport, and it's not exercise. And she said, look, I lost 9 pounds this last year, and I have 40 new friends, and Weight Watchers didn't do that for me, right? So I have learned to look at pickleball a little different than all the other sports I've played over the years. In basketball, if you got hurt, somebody would drag your body off the floor and get a substitute in, and they'd say to you, I hope you get better.
Yep.
My doubles partner, who's really a fine player, backed up and tripped and fell and broke both her wrists. And and she's the caregiver for her husband who has cancer. For 6 weeks, people took her husband to their appointments, brought food to them. And tell you, if I was on the basketball court, no one would have done any of that for me, right? This is
so true.
This is a different. So one lesson learned, this is really about building community. Don't just think about building courts when you're trying to expand what you do. Build community, and they will come, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you were also very instrumental in keeping the historic part of the pickleball being founded on Bainbridge Island, right? Tell us about that.
Well, I just stepped down after 6 years as being the leader or co-leader of Bainbridge Island Pickleball. And we've built 24 courts. We're opening 12 new indoor courts this month. I'm tired of building courts and raising money. And now, people want more courts. So I decided, really, what I want to do is I want to make sure that the spirit of the founders, again, I think that our role on Bainbridge Island, the home of the game, we need to be the guardians of the spirit of the founders. And so I've decided that that's where I want to spend my time, sharing what that spirit looks like and what it looks like in practice. And so I made up a new title for myself. My title is Chief Spirit Officer.
I like it.
Love it.
And when you're this old, you can make up any title you want for yourself. So that's my new title. And I've been able to work with some of the franchises around the country and ask them to try and incorporate some of this into their work. And I'm real happy that many of them are open to that. And I think that there's a whole lot, again, a lesson learned. There's a lot of money that's come into pickleball. We have the PPA, and we have tournaments, and we have Duper, and we have rating systems. By the way, I had the good fortune of spending time with the last living founder, Barney McCallum, and Barney wasn't real excited about all this rating stuff.
Mm.
And so my rating actually this week, my rating changes. I'm a 7.6 this week. I was a 7.5. Well, I'm a 7.5 right now. I'll be a 7.6 on Friday.
Wow.
Oh, your
And when
birthday.
people say it only goes to 5, I said no. I talked with one of the founders. He gave me a rating, and like there are places that are real snooty. Like you can't play unless you're professionally rated and you're a 3.5 or above. That's
Yeah.
not in the spirit of the game, by the way. Just to let you know. So I really think that's we need to keep that alive because as the money's come in, it's gotten much more competitive. There's a lot of younger players, which is great because we need to grow the game. So there's a lot of good things about the growth of the game, but I think there's some things that we need to keep in mind as we move forward. This was about friends and family and about friendly competition. And we need to keep that alive. And I think the traditions, and uh, and around the country, it's funny because people are embracing some of this. As an example, every game ought to start in the corner of the court closest to Bainbridge Island, right?
Right, right.
And usually that's in the northwest corner, but wherever it is, that's where you ought to start the game.
Yeah.
My feeling is, in golf, when you hit your first tee shot and it's a crappy tee shot, you know what they give you? They
What?
give, they give you a mulligan.
Mulligan.
Oh,
You get
Mulligan
one
Man.
extra shot. So my take is on the first serve of the day in pickleball, if it doesn't go in, you ought to get a
What?
McCallum. See, there were 3 founders, but they aren't all created equal.
uh,
Oh,
Barney McCallum was the most important founder in my mind.
t-
Joel Pritchard was a great promoter, and he did a
yeah.
lot for the game. Bill Bell was a spy for the CIA. He wasn't around a lot. Barney ran an envelope company in Seattle, and when 5 o'clock came, he put the envelopes away, pulled out the pickleball stuff, and started selling box sets of pickleball. He's the guy who made the paddles and kept making different prototypes of the paddles. And by the way,
mm,
there's what I consider to be at least a third and a half or a fourth founder, and it was Dick Brown from Tacoma.
oh,
Brown and Haley, the Almond Roca company. He had a
yes.
summer place, and he played with these 3 other guys. And the reason we have a kitchen today, he was 6'6", and the first few weeks, he would stand at the net and pound it down on the kids. And the kids drew a line and said, "You can't go inside that line."
The
And
kitchen.
that's the origin of the kitchen. So there's some history here that I think people need to know um, as the game continues to grow. And frankly, I know this won't be very popular with some people, but I don't think billionaires from Texas or from Arizona ought to be involved in creating the Pickleball Hall of Fame in Texas or Arizona.
Oh, I didn't know that was happening.
Oh yeah, there are two Hall of Fames, one in Arizona, one in Texas. In baseball, the Hall of Fame is in Cooperstown, New York. And
Yeah.
basketball is in Springfield, Massachusetts, where both of the games were founded.
Yeah.
My take is
Mm,
pickleball, the we ought to have the home of the game is where we ought to have the Hall of Fame for pickleball, not in
I
Texas or
agree.
Arizona.
I
So
agree.
so
There,
we think it's really important to keep that alive and keep those stories alive and keep that spirit alive.
you have a museum there currently, don't you?
We have a historical museum. There are
Yeah.
partners in our tournament each year. We're really delighted to work with them, and they have a whole section on pickleball. So they don't just recognize ancient history here on Bainbridge. They recognize pickleball as being an important part of our history.
Clay had sent us an article that he wrote, "Preserving the Spirit of Pickleball," and I was just wondering, is there a link to that for our listeners to read? That is really a great article.
No,
Um, listing how we can all keep the original spirit and intent of the game alive.
Well, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll get our group to link that with our website.
Oh, please do.
Oh, you
It's
should.
really
You
good.
should.
Shelley, read a few of those that we really liked
You
about
know,
the
what I
tradition.
loved is the traditions that you had, that hopefully everyone that's playing the game now or maintaining the traditions of, as you said, play always starts in the northwest corner, because the corner that's closest to Bainbridge Island. The game begins with introductions at the net. We should all start at the net, look each other in the eye. Someone told me that the other day too, is don't just walk up and push your paddle up there. Actually look everyone in the eye.
Yeah.
Like you really care. It's like it's a real introduction, right?
Yeah, I call that dink and discover.
Yeah, and then your next
Ink
one
and
is the dink and discover. When you're warming up, you're dinking, but discover. Ask people some questions about themselves on the other side of the net, right? Really kind of try to discover each other, get to know people. And the game, I love this one. This is the one that I haven't done. The game starts with the question, are you ready to have some fun?
Mm-hmm.
So the first server should, okay, are we ready to have some fun? I
That's
love
good.
that.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
just think it sets the right tone,
Yes.
especially in
Yes,
recreational play.
Yeah.
yes. And
Yeah.
at the conclusion, we all go to the net and we tap paddles. And it's important that we keep all those traditions up. I think that's what really makes pickleball the community that we're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
So
Yes.
beautiful.
And
Yeah.
there's so much more in the article about knowing the rules, good sportsmanship, how to handle aggressive play, and ideas for clubs. Like you were talking about, you've been talking to clubs, and it's just a great article. I think you need to have this linked on your website so everyone can read that.
Well,
I do
thanks, and
too.
thanks for reading it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautifully
yeah.
written and great reminders. And I never thought about, I think one of them is, stop the game. If somebody's being really rough, stop the game and just touch base and say, "Hey, we're here to have fun, and let's have fun," instead of kind of grueling through it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things Barney was most proud of when I asked him, he was 94, and we were breaking ground for our courts, and we had him there, and I said, Barney, what are you the most proud of? He said, I'm proud that we created a game where men and women can play together,
Yeah.
where placement beats power every time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I see some guys who are bangers and target people, and oftentimes in doubles I see them targeting a woman in that, and I'm thinking, wait, time out, this isn't what it's about, right?
Right.
Yes.
And I do think none of us, men or women, like to be targeted and like to deal
No.
with people who. I mean, I know it happens. It always happens accidentally, but if I think if it's happening deliberately, somebody needs to call it out and say, "Hey, let's back
Mm-hmm.
off a bit and have fun here," right? So,
I love
Right.
that. Love that.
Yeah, that is so great. Do you have any other fun stories you'd like to share with our listeners?
I guess another lesson is I think what's missing in America right now and what we need is bringing people together.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
I still remember a fun game my partner and I were playing against another group. And the guy I happen to know is a member of the LGBTQ community, and the woman is a Trumper. And they're high fiving and they're fist bumping
Oh.
and they're having the best time. And I turned to my partner as we walked back to serve. I said, you know what? This never would have happened without pickleball.
You're
No,
absolutely right.
And
never.
one of the lessons I have learned is it is really hard to demonize somebody once you've played with them.
Yeah.
That
You
is
can't
so
talk
true.
about them, those people, because you know this person personally and you're enjoying playing with them. And so I think we need to play more together.
I do.
I agree,
And
because like you said, after you've played with someone and you have that relationship, you're just more open to share things and open to who they are.
mhm.
Yeah.
I've seen it
I
time
love
and
that.
time again on the courts, and I think it's what's missing in America. There was an article some time ago, and I'm sure you saw it. Is can pickleball save America? Well, on
Yeah.
some levels, I think it certainly can improve things, right?
I agree. And we've talked with a number of guests about the idea of getting more representatives and senators to play together across across the political lines, across the net, and side by side. And I think it would make a big difference if they would just do more play.
Yeah, and
And
I think I always try and remind people, hey, the game was founded by a Republican congressman, and it was made the state sport by a Democratic governor. So
in
it was founded
fact,
by a Republican and made the state sport by a Democrat. This
Oh,
is really about people, everybody having fun together, right?
right.
indeed. And in fact, that was your special day. I think that's where you got the Mr. Pickleball title, was the day when Governor Inslee acknowledged the work you had done. Can you tell us about that
Well,
day?
yeah, you want to know the backstory?
Yes, I do.
I'm an avid cyclist and basketball player. Jay's an old basketball buddy, and he's
Oh,
my cycling buddy.
Oh,
oh,
And during the pandemic, we were looking for things to do, so we'd go out and cycle together because we had appropriate distance. And every time I would say, "Okay, Jay, when are you going to make pickleball the state sport?" And he accused me for 2 years of being an illegal lobbyist because I was not registered. But every time I saw him, I just gave him crap about not making it the state. I said, "Look, just like Texas and Arizona grabbed the Hall of Fame, they're going to grab this as their state sport, right?"
yeah, good point.
And thankfully, John, he's a senator from Linwood, and I'm drawing a blank on his last name. Really good guy. Yeah, and Jay, during this whole thing, he said, "Yeah, this is going to look really good during the pandemic. The governor has nothing better to do than making pickleball the state sport." Well, politically, it was not the right time to do this, but he got some bipartisan support because there are people who play on both
oh
sides of
yeah.
the aisle, and so we were able to make it happen. So my role was really behind the scenes. Every time I saw him, it was like, okay, I hear you, right? But it's not the right time to do it, and so that's really why I'd like to tell you it was this hard work that I did behind the scenes and all the political wrangling. It was simply riding a bicycle beside the governor for weeks on end and not letting him forget that he could do something really cool and make pickleball the state sport. So that's how it happened.
Persistence.
Yeah.
Well, this whole thing, I just have to laugh, and this, I've been called several things, some of them by the tennis community that probably isn't, we don't want to talk about here, but, but, I've been called the pickleball impresario. I've been called Mr. Pickleball. And it's like, you know, this is, this is about being in the right place, Bainbridge Island, at the right time, because I think the pandemic was a horrible thing, but there was a little bit of a silver lining here, and that people were looking for anything they could do to get out and play with their children and their neighbors and
Yeah.
be safe.
Yeah.
And pickleball fit all and checked all those boxes.
Mhm.
So we were able to grow really fast during that time. And
Mhm.
once it caught on, what's happened. It's been a tsunami, and
Yeah.
so I was fortunate just to be in the right place at the right time. And I think I had a great. I want to make sure that we acknowledge what a wonderful community I live in. I got a lot of credit for asking people for money, and they gave it. And
Well, it's
so,
pickleball.
Oh, it's for a good
and
cause.
Yeah.
it's really it was really an eye opener. But seriously, I mean, what I did was, my business was really hard to keep going during the pandemic, and I'm not good at sitting
Mm,
around, so I needed to have a cause, and this was a great cause,
Perfect.
great.
and what a generous community, and my teammates, and we didn't call it Bainbridge Island Pickleball Club, we called it Bainbridge Island Pickleball Community. My
Nice.
teammates and the community stepped up to the plate, did a lot of hard work, gave money, and as a result, we were able to do some things that no one believed we were going to be able to do. I mean, the fact that we're opening 12 new indoor courts at the end of the month, beautiful new courts, I'm going, oh my God, whoever
That's
thought.
news. We didn't know about that, Clay.
Well,
So
they're in
that's
Paulsbo.
exciting.
They're in Paulsbo because we
Oh,
found the building in Paulsbo. We got
awesome.
12 clubs in the area it was a vacant building. It used to be an Office Max store. It had been vacant for a year and a half. And the critical element is the ceiling high enough, and are the posts in the right spot, enough space
Yes.
Uh-huh.
between them. And it was
Yeah.
perfect. It was like they designed it for pickleball, right?
Ah,
So I got 12 clubs together and said, okay, guys, can we raise the money to repurpose this facility? Clubs from Kingston, Paulsbo, Silverdale, Bremerton. And it was perfectly located. And they said, oh, yeah, we can do this. Then we got the mayor on board, and she came I called a meeting and I said, let's just look at the facility. And of course, I put up all these temporary nets in there and taped the floor so everybody could see where the
staged
courts
it.
were going to be. We all walked in, and I invited 12 clubs. Well, 60 some people showed up, including the
Jeez.
mayor from Paulsbo. And she went and she put on her Facebook page that day, we're going to do this. Paulsbo's going to
Oh,
do this. And
oh,
and a commercial group, Pickleball Kingdom, heard about it, stepped in, and John and Mara, I think, who you talked with
yes.
last week, who are, I mean,
So lovely.
they are so good. And it's like, they said, we'll do it. And they said, how do you feel about that? And I said, I don't have to raise any money. And it'll be
You're
much
like,
nicer. It'll be much nicer than what we could do. And
Awesome.
they've just got they got the right attitude and the right spirit. This is going to
Yes, they
be
do.
a huge success, I think. And
I do too.
I'm
I
just
do
looking
too.
forward to this. And the mayor is behind it, and the city council's behind it. Man, we couldn't ask for a better setup. So we call that our home too, although it's a little
Nice.
off island, but it's about as close as we're ever going to get to the home of the game with courts
yeah,
that nice that are indoors. So we're excited about that.
that is very exciting.
Well,
Yeah.
Clay, oh my gosh, you are absolutely the person who should have the title Mr. Pickleball because you have the heart, the work you do with the kids. Oh my gosh. And community is so important for kids as they're growing up. And here, community is so important for adults as well. And pickleball can bring all the ages together, all the ethnicities, all the languages, all the cultures, all the political
Which
bents and all.
you're
It's amazing. And
you're
I am
right.
so
And
appreciative of everything you've done, especially here in Washington, to
one
make,
last lesson.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Bring them on.
Pickleball is the perfect model for youth development.
Ah,
You know what? If you remember, I said one of the things we know is young people who have 3 or more adults in their life, in addition to their parents, do dramatically better. We've found, and we don't do enough of it, and I don't think, I haven't seen many clubs who do enough of this, but we need to engage young people more in learning the game and playing with them together. It's intergenerational interaction. And
yes.
I can give you multiple stories, but there are kids who came to the court. We gave them paddles. We started teaching them. George is one that I love, and now he just kicks my fanny. And I give him all this responsibility. Like, George, can you lock up the courts? I got to go. He loves it. He does it. He brings his friends. I'm
Oh,
thinking we're missing the boat. If you really want your children to grow up healthy, this is a safe place where they can interact with adults of all ages.
yeah.
And it's not that they learn from us; we learn from them as well.
Amen.
It's like perfect,
Yeah.
and we need to do more of that. That's my last lesson.
I love that. Oh my gosh, Clay. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done, that you continue to do with kids and with pickleball, and the way that you have helped change the world. You really are changing. You know, the question was, can pickleball save America? I think pickleball can save the world, and you are such a part of that. And I really appreciate everything you've done.
Well, thanks for doing the podcast. I think I keep thinking people who don't know about it need to understand a little more about the game, because when they do, you've seen what happens once they show up. They're hooked, and
Yeah.
and they bring others to the game. And I just think it's good for us both physically and mentally, right?
Mentally and
Oh, for sure.
emotionally. Absolutely.
And our joy.
Yeah, and the
Brings
Absolutely,
so much
joy.
joy. Yes.
absolutely.
So what's your website where people can find you?
Well, they can't find me, but they can find Bainbridge Island Pickleball. If they just Google Bainbridge Island Pickleball, you can go to our um, website. We've got some cool things going on, and we've it's gotten a lot better since I left because we've got younger people in the leadership role, which I think is absolutely perfect, and I get to play more and have to do less work as a volunteer. So
Is that the website you were referring that you would link the article to?
yeah, I'll ask them to do that.
Okay,
Okay,
very
great.
good. Very good. Well, thank you. And wait, what's the website for your business?
I don't have one.
You don't have one.
No.
Oh, that's impressive. That
Yeah,
you
well,
are
no, it's
so
not. It's when you're kind of trying to wind things down.
okay.
The business is Roberts and Associates, and people can find me if they really want to hunt me out. But
Okay. They'll find you through the pickleball.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate you being on the show too.
thank you
Thanks.
guys,
Thank you.
and thanks for those who tune in.
You bet.
Thank
And
you.
thank you all. Oh my gosh. Yeah, pickleball is the state sport now for Washington. And come on over. You guys come visit Bainbridge. It's incredible, right,
We'd
Clay?
love to
Yeah.
have you. We want it to be. Our goal is have it be the friendliest place in the world to play.
Oh,
That's what the founders would expect of us. So we've tried to make that happen.
awesome. Come be at the friendliest place to play pickleball, Bainbridge Island. Thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to a new conversation next week. Bye bye.
Thank you.
If you love our podcast, we'd be so grateful if you'd take a few seconds to follow or subscribe to Life Lessons from Pickleball. This ensures you'll never miss an episode and helps us continue these wonderful conversations.
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, go to the show page and tap the follow button in the top right corner. And on YouTube, click the subscribe button under any of the episodes.
Thanks so much. Hope to see you on the court.